You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Locked On Lakers for Monday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. Hope everybody out there had a great Father's Day weekend. We did, which is cool. Lots to get into today, Andy. We finally reached the conference finals in the NBA. Of course, the Lakers still not in it. I was sort of hoping maybe they'd be put back, but they weren't. And the teams that are left with the teams that have been eliminated, if you're somebody who thinks the Lakers have some significant problems with their roster, it's not so bad. I mean, some of the teams out there have way worse problems to think about, bigger problems, structural problems than the Lakers certainly do. So we'll talk about that. Jeannie Buss has a new show with Netflix about ostensibly about her, right, Andy?
It's set in a workplace that sounds like it is the Lakers headquarters in El Segundo. Mindy Kaling is, I believe, the executive producer or among the highest ranking producers. Also, so is Linda Rambis.
Mm-hmm.
It's
about a sports owner and her best friend.
Yeah.
So
if you manage
to be tracking,
well, if you manage to get both Mindy Kaling and Linda Rambis to sign on, you've got a pretty good working script and stuff and working concept.
Want to start with the news this week out of El Segundo. Actually, some pretty significant news. Tell you that after we tell you that this episode is brought to you by Spotify Green Room. Download the app and join us this week, Friday, noon Pacific, to get in on the action. Spotify Green Room, changing the way we talk sports. Andy, the big shakeup was in the training staff this week with the Lakers. Nina Hsieh, who's been with the team, was with the team for 2 seasons as the head athletic trainer, is out. There are going to be some other people on their way out as well. The Lakers reportedly will be making continuing changes as they kind of reevaluate apparently how they're going to be doing athletic training. You may have noticed they had a couple of very high profile injuries. LeBron James, Anthony Davis.
LeBron missed 26 of the last 30 games, AD 36 in all this season. Obviously, LeBron was never able to fully recover once the playoffs rolled around, although I'm not sure he really had the proper time to do this, regardless of who was in charge of him. And it's always worth noting LeBron has a lot of
Mike Mancias is on the Lakers staff. He is essentially LeBron's trainer.
Right.
He's been his guy for a while.
But there were the injuries in the playoffs to Alex Caruso and KCP as well. According to Spotrac data, the Lakers roster missed 201 games total in injury in the 2021 season, which is about the middle of the pack, correct? In terms,
that is about right in the middle, give or take. There's a band of teams between like 211 and 194, and the Lakers are right in there. That's kind of the middle group. A lot of teams with a lot more, a few teams with a lot less. So it just makes me wonder what exactly was missing from their athletic training program that makes them think that they can get better going forward into next year, which is going to itself be another year of a weird offseason, still slightly compressed, irregular. And what the Lakers, I would love to know what the Lakers think they're looking for to be different for next year than this, other than, hey, our guys shouldn't get hurt.
Well, I mean, the really cynical view would be just that they are looking for some type of public scapegoat, and the public scapegoat became Nina Hsieh and presumably some other people that were on.
Yes, and that thought. Yeah, it's an easy thing. Oh, well, like we got, whatever it was, our roster didn't work. Let's fire the trainer.
Right. There was a lot of attention being paid on just the amount of injuries and the ability to keep those guys healthy and the lack of success there in the second half of the season. You also wonder if maybe there are specific concerns, whether from LeBron or AD, like dissatisfactions from those guys, because they're obviously the two guys who matter the most, and their voices would be heard on something like this, or if there are concerns within the organization. I would say, if I had to guess, about specifically Nina Hsieh's ability to keep AD healthy, because there are so many questions about his health before the Lakers acquired him anyway. I mean, he has that reputation as somebody who has a difficult time staying on the floor.
Mhm.
And if there's any doubt about Nina Hsieh's ability to alleviate that, even if it's not her fault per se, that AD wasn't able to stay on the court as much this year, they may be looking to get proactive about it. Another thing, though, Brian, that's kind of popped into my head when I was thinking about this, like it's a reminder of how long Gary Vitti had been with the organization. Like Gary Vitti was with them through, I think it was 2016, like 2017, something like that. He was the head trainer, and then there was a year or two where he was kind of like almost like a consigliere to the training staff, but he didn't have that formal role. And then he was eventually, I believe, let go, like sort of like let go / retired.
Mhm.
But he was with them going back to Showtime. So it just, the thought occurred to me that when you have one guy running this for so long and largely so successfully, it could actually become pretty easy for the organization after Vitti leaves to not exactly know what they want in a training staff period, because for so long it almost ran itself. I would imagine from the front office perspective. Just
and plus too, it's like, and the environment is different. I mean, Judy Cito, who was worked with Kobe for years, is still on staff as director of sports performance, and so she is still there, but it's a different deal now. Like I said, LeBron James has his guy, and he's on the team payroll, Mike Mancias. But everybody has their own person. And so it's like, it's almost, you got to get into the middle of the roster before, guys aren't dealing with quote unquote their guy. So, I mean, just the environment is very different, but the level of sports performance, this is an organization too, that, whether good at it or not, when Rob Pelinka rolled in, they were thinking outside, and they brought in Gunnar Peterson to be there. And I there were a lot of jokes that were made because he was like, Magic's trainer and the, Kardashians trainer.
Well, look,
and all that.
I don't care what Gunnar Peterson's qualifications are or aren't. The Lakers hiring Gunnar Peterson, trainer to the stars, is the joke that writes itself.
Absolutely. And so he was with the team until, somewhere around the before the season
that's the
started.
joke, that if this series we're going to be talking about in the next segment were not being run by Jeannie Buss, those were the type of jokes that would be made in that series.
Yes,
they hired Gunnar Peterson.
But so I mean, that I guess is sort of out of the box. So you're not thinking purely as a guy who is in basketball. So I mean, it is not something I suspect that Rob Pelinka is going to be talking a lot about until the hires are made, until they get into training camp in the fall, and all of that stuff is taken care of. But clearly, at least based on, if you're going to go on the reports, they want something is missing from what they want. And I hope it's not just our guys got hurt too much, because everybody got hurt this year and their guys didn't get hurt that much more than anybody else. I would hope it's based on something more than that, a process issue. In the same way that I think it's, Mike Budenholzer, I don't know if his job is safe or not safe. He is no better of a coach than he was heading into Game 7, than he was after Game 7 when the Bucks won. And if people didn't think Mike Budenholzer was a good coach then he shouldn't survive even if the Bucks win a title. And I would say the same about Nina Hsieh. Like if people had concerns about her during the year, then she should be let go. If they're just looking for stuff to blame people on, I hope that's not it, because it's not going to solve the problem.
By the way, really quick, you and I could not remember if Gunnar Peterson was still with the team. So we eventually found confirmation over at GunnarPeterson.com. He is not with the team anymore.
He is the former. But
what we also learned, though, is that, quote, with over 28 years in the fitness industry, Gunnar's dynamic approach, boundless energy, and parentheses, sometimes risky, close parentheses, humor, only add to the effectiveness of the experience his clients enjoy. So if you ever catch Gunnar Peterson at an open mic at like the Laugh Factory or something, you better expect him to go blue.
Well, Andy, as we always said,
he's always on the verge of getting canceled.
You watch Gunnar Peterson on the court. It's stretchy bands and dick jokes. That's
yeah.
That's what you get with Gunnar. That's just Gunnar being Gunnar. What do you want?
Yeah, I mean, Gunnar does not understand, man. It's 2021. You can't keep doing that stuff.
Yeah, presumably Nina Hsieh, the problem was not her sense of humor. I don't know.
Her jokes weren't risky enough.
All right. Next, let's talk.
Looks for in a trainer.
It's pretty safe.
Look, man,
pretty safe, Nina. That one-liner.
We need a little more edge from our trainers.
I didn't even have to think about calling HR about that joke, Nina.
Come on, man.
It's something a little more dicey. Come on. All right. Next,
let's work at a Midwest organization.
Let's talk about the TV show, because the news broke on this, and I thought it was pretty interesting in about 12 different ways. So we'll talk about the new Lakers Genie Bus Netflix joint next.
Locked On Lakers brought to you by Indeed. If you're the hiring expert for your company, what you really need is making your short list of quality candidates. You need a hiring partner who makes your life easier. You need Indeed. Indeed is the job site that makes hiring as easy as 1, 2, 3. Post, screen, interview, all on Indeed. Get your quality short list of candidates whose resumes match your job description. Only pay for the candidates that have must-have qualifications. Schedule and complete video interviews in your Indeed dashboard. Indeed makes hiring the right talent fast and easy with tools like Indeed Instant Match. It gives you quality candidates whose resume on Indeed fits your job description immediately. Also, Indeed skills tested on average reduce hiring time by 27%. According to Talent Nest, Indeed delivers 4 times more hires than all the other job sites combined. Those are some sorry-ass job sites if they're getting smoked by Indeed this badly. So you need Indeed. Go get started right now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/locked. $75 credit at Indeed.com/locked. Indeed.com/locked. Offer valid through June 30th. Terms and conditions apply.
This from the Hollywood Reporter. Streaming giant Netflix has gone straight to series on an untitled workplace comedy inspired by the front office of the NBA's Los Angeles Lakers. Team president Jeannie Buss is attached to executive produce the Mindy Kaling-produced workplace comedy that is inspired by the 17-time NBA champions' family owners and front office. Netflix describes the series, which comes as HBO is mounting a scripted drama following the team's historic 1980s squad known as Showtime, follows Eliza Reed, the governor of a fictional team, as she navigates NBA ownership and family drama with her best friend by her side. First thing, Andy, I would like to point out, Eliza Reed is a great example of how every single character in every script ever written sounds fake.
What's going to be great, though, is that Eliza Reed's brother is going to be named Jim. And
I say this like I say Eliza Reed sounds like the fakest name ever. I'm going to Google Eliza Reed Facebook and just see how many profiles. It's probably the name of like 10,000 different people. Interesting.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's the name of a character. It's the name of Jane Eyre's cousin in Jane Eyre.
Yeah.
Do you think that was part of the reason?
I wouldn't, to be totally honest, I wouldn't know without rereading Jane Eyre, and by rereading I mean reading it. So it's hard for me to know
by rereading the cover of Jane Eyre, so I know what it's called,
or at least the cliff notes. I mean, or trying to remember the movie versions of Jane Eyre that I've watched parts of to remember exactly. I don't think I have ever seen a Jane Eyre adaptation from start to finish, and I know that I've never actually read the book. Either way, though, Mindy Kaling is involved with it. That's obviously a very, very heavy hitter. Also, Linda Rambis is going to be an executive producer, which I think feels apropos for the situation.
Well, yeah, I mean, she, I presume, is the best friend by her side. So
Eliza Reed's best friend.
I am interested in this both from a television, like an entertainment standpoint. Like, is it going to be good? What are they going to make fun of? Like, who's going to play what? And all that stuff. But really, as somebody who has covered the team for 15, 16, I forget how long we've been doing it, been in one way or one way, shape, or form around the team. Like, how how deep into this are they going to go, and how much of a sense of humor is Jeannie Buss going to display about herself and about the front office and about all the crap that went on that was not just, Jim and,
like
and
how
Mitch.
much humor there will there be at the expense of characters not named Jim Reed and Johnny Reed?
Right.
Is what you're asking.
Is Eliza Reed always going to be good at her job? I mean,
Yes,
like
naturally.
if you were in charge of this show, how much would you inject like the real things that are related to your team rather than kind of making a composite out of your experience as an NBA owner?
It's a tricky question because on one hand, it would be great and refreshing to see Jeannie and, by extension, Linda Rambis, who both took a lot of crap during that period of, just turmoil and chaos for the Lakers. Some of the crap I think was honestly deserved.
Some of it wasn't. Absolutely.
Some of it wasn't. But either way, it would be pretty refreshing for them to show some type of candor for the things that either they did wrong or they could have done better, or just this was a goddamn mess and we were in the middle of it and we certainly didn't solve it. The flip side, though, and this is somewhere where I think it's not even so much ego as it is practical image concerns. The Lakers got themselves past a lot of really bad stuff happening with the organization in several years where they were just seen as a chaotic, dysfunctional tire fire. I don't know how much they want to remind everybody of that,
right,
unless there is so much humor mined from it that you can look past the reminder of, oh my God, that this organization was for a while flailing and in some ways got lucky with their own geography, that LeBron at this stage of his career, where he clearly has a lot of interests that are located in Los Angeles, wanted to be a part of the organization. I can see where
but I don't expect them to. I don't expect this to be like she's got the brothers who are like. I mean, I don't expect it to be that literal. But
there will definitely be a villain in a baseball hat. I can promise you that.
The people will be searching for things that can be tied to real life, inspired by real life, and I am wondering where they will go. Again, they're not going to go back and recreate the Jim Buss. I'd be surprised. I mean, I don't think they're going to be that literal, but in some ways, it almost makes it worse. Like you see a player, you see a something, you say, well, what inspires that? And I wonder how close to real life. They're obviously not going to make a villain out of the LeBron character, the star of the team or whatever it might be. And they're going to make sure that certain things cannot be read to be interpreted, I think, as, oh no, that's supposed to be LeBron. Look at this,
well, here's what's
jerk
even worse
over here.
Well, I mean, here's what's even worse than something being interpreted as, oh, that's LeBron or oh, that's AD. And you're right. I don't see any reason why that would happen, both for practical reasons and also just there really is no reason to paint either of those guys like that. They need to. Someone asked me about this on Twitter, and I wasn't sure the answer, but it's something I'm sure they have to be wary of. They have to make sure that they don't do anything on this show that feels like it could be tampering. That feels like they are citing real life players, or like, I mean, for real, that's something they're going to have to be careful about, like making sure that they're
Milwaukee Brats star Flanis Bunta de Bumpo.
Well, but I mean,
I understand. There are all kinds of stuff. So we'll see. I mean, we'll see what happens.
And Jeannie's going to tell Rob, like, look, this current Laker is being prominently mentioned over a 3-episode arc that happens to run around the trade deadline. Right. You can't move him because there's no time for reshoots.
Exactly.
Like, everything's in the can.
We'll just see. Well, I don't
care what offers we get.
It is. It's reflective of an interesting time in the nexus between athletes and entertainment, and now teams taking much more control of messaging again, because it's not just this show. There's also the Showtime show as well with HBO. By the
way, final note: if we had known that Jeannie was eventually going to move in this direction, I would have only said nice things about her publicly, and I would have defended her against all criticism, even the stuff that I totally agreed with that people were criticizing. I would have been a massive public ally because I would love to be on staff for this show. And you and I have said too much. Like that's never going to happen.
Nope. That is true.
We talked ourselves out of a potential gig, and I'm not sure it was worth it.
Yeah, no, it absolutely wasn't. All right, let's talk some playoffs, some fascinating storylines as the NBA reaches the conference finals. We'll do that next. Want to let you know that Locked On Lakers is brought to you by Built Bar. If you are needing something that's good for you, that's healthy, that tastes good, but also gives you some nutrition, gives you some energy throughout the day, that's Built Bar. High in protein, low in sugar and calories, and the improved Built Bar, even more delicious than it was before. It's pretty damn delicious to begin with. 18 flavors, including 6 new ones like caramel brownie, cookies and cream, and cherry barcia. Built Bar will calm your sweet tooth if you got one like I do, even without the sugar, because it's coated in 100% real chocolate. It tastes good. It tastes like something a little bit sweet, a little bit satisfying in that way, scratches that itch, but it's still soft. It's easy to chew. And like I said, high in protein, low in calories, low in sugar. Go to BuiltBar.com, use the promo code LOCKED15, and you'll get 15% off your next order. The promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at BuiltBar.com. All right, so the Clippers lost game 1 Sunday to the Suns. Clippers playing without Kawhi Leonard, the Suns playing without Chris Paul, although they probably have a better chance of getting Chris Paul back than the Clippers do of getting Kawhi back, Andy, it seems.
Yeah, Chris Haynes from Yahoo reported that they are hopeful that Chris Paul will be back relatively soon in this series. It may not happen before game 2, which will be tomorrow. But I think they're hopeful that by, say, game 3, Chris Paul will be back. I've not seen any confidence that Kawhi Leonard will be back by then.
They just keep saying he's not playing. But, there's no such thing as an ACL injury. You hope it's not a tear. But, even a mild
Well, I think if it were a tear, we'd know if it were a tear, we'd know he's already out. He's not going to play.
Only if they said it. I mean,
right,
maybe for whatever reason they're just not saying gamesmanship, whatever it might be. Meanwhile, Paul George, who is as much of a lightning rod as the world of sports has to offer, particularly when it comes to playoff time. 13 games in the playoffs this postseason, 26 points a game, 45% shooting. He's averaging 9 rebounds a game, a little over 5 assists, a steal, about 0.6 of a block, shooting 36% from 3-point range. Overall, I think has done a tremendous amount of image rehab over the course of these playoffs. It hasn't been perfect, but particularly since Kawhi went down, what he did against the Jazz, I think shut a lot of people up. I know that's something you tweeted about over the weekend. He's been good in ways that I think surprise some people and annoy others.
Well, I was going to say it definitely annoys people. And a reminder today on the road to the finals, our NBA playoffs coverage brought to you by Michelob Ultra. It's only worth it if you enjoy it. And 2.6 carbs, 95 calories. We can all enjoy the games a little more this season. Although for a lot of Laker fans, there's nothing enjoyable about watching Paul George succeed. I discovered that when I just tweeted out that over the 48 hours or so with Game 6 against Utah, where Paul George was absolutely spectacular. There's no way around it. It was an absolutely phenomenal performance, combined with a Game 7 where Terrence Mann became the story, but Paul George put up 28, 9, and 7 with 3 steals. He was plus 20 or plus 19 in a game the Clippers had been down like 25 points in the third quarter. You got to be doing something pretty damn well to put up those stats. And I had a lot of people just trying to find ways to take away from Paul George's achievement.
Right, because he was had they lost against Dallas, it would have been, pandemic P all over.
Oh, sure.
It's a fascinating, it is the edge, the knife's edge between guy who is terrible again forever and a guy who can't be relied on again forever versus image rehab, which is how I open this segment, is real thin. And a lot of times it doesn't even have that much to do with the player, but the fortunate nature of getting out of a series versus not. But what he did, 31, 31, 37 to get out, and then 28, like you said, so 7, 6, 5, 4, and 3. That is really good work against a good Utah team.
Well, I mean, look, with Paul George in particular, there's so much history that's negative connected directly to the Lakers that he's just not going to get a break within that fan base. And I get it. I mean, you want to keep hating him, keep hating him. I just think you can admit the reason I'm taking away from this performance is because I despise the dude. And
right, it's petty. I am being willfully. Right. This is not basketball analysis. Right. It's fandom, and I'm out here because I'm a fan, and I'm going to be petty about it.
Right. And just say great performance, F him, and at least I will respect your basketball opinion more. One of the things though that I think is interesting with Paul George, I've been thinking about just watching these last few games where he's had to operate without Kawhi, and by and large, I think he's been really good.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that he's like at a level where he could carry a team to a title, and he just hasn't been given his due because the Twitter jokes are just so much fun to make. Like he has not proven himself that way. But I don't
think if he's your best player, you're probably not going to win a title.
Probably not. But what I do wonder, though, if in terms of just seeing what lies ahead from him in these playoffs for however long Kawhi is going to be out, I do wonder if being forced to operate as a number one brings out the best in him, because I do think he has the type of personality that can allow himself a certain degree of either passivity or, a willingness to cede some superstar responsibilities, some things you expect from superstars. If there's somebody that he's next to, whether you're talking about Russell Westbrook, whether you're talking about Kawhi Leonard, who is the consensus guy. Like, because Paul George has that type of personality by his own admission.
We've spent weeks of seasons talking about George as a potential MVP candidate. It's not like
the talent, the pure talent is really, really high. Whether you think it can be the focal point of a championship team or not high, it's undoubtedly there. But by his own admission, he can get into his own head. He can overanalyze. He can fight anxiety. So I just wonder if being in a situation where he has no choice but to be the number one, similar to how he was with the Pacers, under Frank Vogel, those teams that went to the Eastern Conference Finals 2 years in a row, and they just were unfortunate to run up against those Heels teams with LeBron. Like, if just this scenario brings out the best in Paul George.
It could. I mean, I think that's part of it. I think George is a guy too, because of how he plays. He's a guy who does a lot of different things. He can run an offense through him. He can shoot from three. And so I think, he feels like, I got to fill in. I got to pass the ball here. I got to get this guy going. Like, it's just, being a wheel greaser, a fundamental all-around player, sometimes that prevents you from just going out and just kicking asses. It's like, because you feel like you got to cover all your bases and you're supposed to play everything the right way. I think Pau Gasol got into that. Sometimes I think Anthony Davis gets into that when he gets so focused on making the right pass. Just go bleep and put the ball on the floor, go score. Like, just be selfish, go do it. And I also think where the Clippers are right now, it can be a little bit liberating for George, because there is zero expectation at this point that the Clippers advance. And so that they got out of the Utah series already does a lot for him. If they get out of the Phoenix series, everything, he's in even better shape, because it will be because of him in large regard. And so I think that is freeing to some degree. He can't really hurt himself from this point forward, because they're supposed to lose anyway. Before we go, I'll say this. I think what we've learned, though, in this postseason is there is a big difference between the Paul George problem, which is Paul George good enough to be the second best player on a championship team? Is he consistent enough? Is he going to show up? Is he going to be pandemic P or something that doesn't sound that stupid? Or is he going to be Ben Simmons, who is supposed to be the second best player on that Philadelphia team, who literally had to be taken off the court because of his deficiencies as an outside shooter, and then eventually as a guy who would even take a shot because he was terrified of getting free throws sent to the free throw line, or something in the middle like Rudy Gobert, where the Clippers kind of lit Utah up, and there's a lot of question as to whether or not Gobert could have been on the floor. You cannot scheme Paul George off the floor. He's either going to play well enough or not. But what we've learned in this postseason as we wrap up is that not every number 2 problem is the same. I learned that in college, but other people, not every problem with your second best player is the same. And the Clippers have a very different one, if they have one at all, than Philadelphia or even Utah. That's sort of my big takeaway from this.
I mean, the thing with the playoffs is if you have weaknesses as a player, enough games scouted against you where a coaching staff has nothing to do other than pick apart what you don't do well, those issues can just become so glaring and so magnified. And then in the meantime,
against better teams with better point guards and
I
smarter
think
players.
Also, too, in Rudy Gobert's case, I don't think the problem becomes mental. The problem becomes he's just not physically capable of making some of the rotations that he needs to at his size. I think for his size, he does it about as well.
Right. He is a world-class rim protector, and the Clippers made rim protection irrelevant.
Right.
That's how they did it.
I think for somebody of his size, he is about as good as you can look for somebody to go and switch out on the perimeter or deal with a team that's putting 5 shooters on the court. Basically somebody that isn't Anthony Davis. Rudy Gobert is about as good as you're going to get at that size. The problem is about as good as you can get at that size may not be close to good enough.
Right. In that game, it wasn't.
But then when you get with someone like Ben Simmons, with what was going on progressively in this series against Atlanta, clearly a lot of this was mental. Like the stuff that Nate McMillan was scheming against Simmons, this wasn't just stuff that McMillan was spotting. This was stuff that clearly Ben Simmons was becoming self-conscious over.
Absolutely.
Right. And once, Shaq was somebody that got self-conscious at the free throw line, but you never got a sense that Shaq was scared to go there. He just got self-conscious when he went.
And Shaq could never be made irrelevant in a way.
Exactly.
You could, again, maybe in today's NBA, you could scheme Shaq off. Couldn't do it in that one, and that was the one he was playing in. And so, Montrezl Harrell gets played off the floor. They did that to Ben Simmons, the second best player. So it's a different deal, and how teams form their teams with the playoffs in mind. Based on what we've seen this year, continue to do that. Not that this would be the first time they've done it, but it's a great storyline. Tough for Ben Simmons, but as a basketball fan, it's just kind of fascinating to watch. Reminder to everybody, please subscribe to the Locked On Lakers YouTube channel. Get all kinds of cool exclusive content there, extras from interviews, all sorts of stuff like that. And then again, Spotify Green Room, Andy.
Yes.
Fridays at noon Pacific. All right. We'll see everybody next time.